Good evening and welcome to News Night. I'm Amritpal Singh. This is a show in which we tell you what happened around the world and in the country in the day just gone by. Well, important developments are happening. There's a report by the international banking giant Goldman Sachs, which says that India is projected to continue its growth story. The projections for next year's economy or GDP growth are pegged at 9.1%. This at a time when most countries are struggling to recover in during the pandemic and post-pandemic times, but India's economy is fairly insulated and resilient. We'll talk about that in detail and other developments. Australia has announced Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, and Morocco for the first time ever has signed a defense deal with Israel. That and much more over the next 1 hour. Let's begin with the headlines we are tracking at this hour. After US and India, Japan and China also announced that they will release domestic oil reserves to help cool rising crude prices, China refuses to confirm if it was participating in the oil stocks release coordinated by the US. Goldman Sachs pegs India's GDP growth to rise at 9.1% in 2022, while projected recovery is slow for most countries, says domestic consumption to be an important contributor to growth, forecasts revival in housing investment. WHO bats for vaccine equity and global pandemic treaty as Europe emerges as COVID epicenter, counters Europe's booster shot approach with call for equitable global distribution of vaccines, especially in low-income countries, backs the TRIPS waiver at the upcoming WTO ministerial conference. Acting German Chancellor Angela Merkel chairs her last cabinet meeting. Social Democrat Olaf Scholz to be the new German Chancellor after his party seals three-way agreement with ecologist Greens and the Libertarian Free Democrats. Morocco and Israel signed first ever defense agreement. Agreement lays the foundation for security cooperation, intelligence sharing and future arms sales. Australia designates Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, also adds neo-Nazi white supremacist group the Base to its list of terrorist organizations, making it a criminal offense to be its member. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to lay the foundation stone of the Noida International Airport at Jewar on Thursday. With this, Uttar Pradesh will become the only state in India to have 5 international airports. The airport will act as a logistics gateway of northern India. Supreme Court takes stock of Delhi NCR state of air pollution, asks Punjab and Haryana governments what they've done to curb stubble burning, tells Delhi government to take care of welfare of labourers in wake of construction ban. Delhi government announces reopening of educational institutions from 29th of November after air quality improves. So those were the headlines we were tracking in this hour, and now the news in detail. Well, there's good news for the Indian economy. The international banking giant Goldman Sachs has forecast India's GDP to grow at 9.1% in 2022 from the 8% in 2021, following a sharp contraction of 7% in 2020 due to the pandemic. The growth is predicted to be driven by domestic consumption. My colleague Mark Lynn takes us through the details of the Goldman Sachs report. Mark, the upswing is consistent recovery trajectory?
That's right, Ramit. If we look at what Goldman Sachs has said, we put it up behind me here. we can see what Goldman Sachs has said. In 2021, they projected India's growth at 8%, and now it's moving to 9.1% in 22. That's a pretty good projection. And we look at the other countries in comparison, we can only see that Germany is moving from 2.9% to 4%, Spain from 4.5% to 6%, and China is declining from 7.8% to 4.8%. The US is at 5.5% in 2021, falling to 3.9%. Of course, the sizes of their economies are much larger. I'm talking about the United States and China. India, of course, is on par with maybe with the UK. 2.3% to 2.8% is what they are growing at, but India is growing at 8% to 9.1%. Significant growth here is seen by India. And we can also see, as I will tell you in our next slide, about what this actually means. We can see that this projection in our next slide, the economy on the upswing, is what Goldman Sachs has been forecasting for India. 9.1% in 2022. It's a big growth forecast in 2022. India's projected growth is the fastest in the world. That's what the previous slide was actually indicating, because the rest of the world is only projected to grow at 4.5%, and the growth of India is double of that at 9.1%. And this growth is going to be driven by consumption, because consumption, as we mean, is our own consumption. That's demand. Domestic demand is going to drive it. Goldman Sachs predicts the continuation of government capital spending. That's the Keynesian model, because that's what kicks in when an economy is in a downward spiral. The government puts in a lot of expenditure, building on infrastructure, creating some sort of demand, and that creates a multiplier effect. Now, it also sees nascent signs of private sector corporate capital expenditure recovery. That's important, because then that shows that the economy is self-sustaining, because once the private sector takes over, there is no need for government support. The economy continues to grow on its own. It's also showing a revival in investment in the housing sector, another key indicator, because it also shows the health of the economy, that people are willing to invest in the housing sector, putting in all their savings, into the housing sector, and that is a significant sign of a certain upwardly mobile society. Inflation also is forecast at 5.8%. This is a note of caution, actually, because the input costs are rising. And so as we see, whenever there is growth, there is also a form of inflation. Growth and inflation go together. Goldman Sachs says that the RBI will continue to exit the extraordinary monetary accommodation in force since the beginning of the pandemic. So the RBI may actually ease some of its terms. And that could be, the monetary policy has been rather tight, because that has been some of the concerns to avoid any inflation. But it might ease some of that. Forecast expects food prices to remain contained. And the reasons for this largely are that there is plenty of buffer stocks. There have been plenty of supplies, adequate supplies and buffer stocks. So this is a question of supply and demand. So whenever the supply is adequate, prices will remain low. Also, let's look at exports. Exports are significant. This is also an indication of the health of the economy. If we look at this slide that's going to come up right now, exports, as we know, we've set a target of $400 billion of exports, and we can see exports have risen 18.80% to $20 billion in the first 3 weeks of this month. A significant boost up in exports. If we go a little further, deeper into this, which are the sectors? There's huge demand for Make in India products globally. That's the brand that has been sold. It's an important brand. It's Brand India. Make in India products are globally visible. Also, there's a healthy growth in sectors such as petroleum, engineering goods, chemicals, gems and jewelry. This is what's driving the exports from our country. And we can see the next slide will tell us what that potential is. The exports growth is expected to cross US dollars 400 billion by the end of the current fiscal, which is March 31st, 2022. And that was, in fact, the forecast. The Prime Minister had set that target of $400 billion, very much on track and achievable well before that. Over to you, Amrit.
Well, thank you, Mark, for explaining that very well. And that brings us to our In Focus tonight. Our In Focus is Indian economy consistent upward trajectory. That's our in focus, our point of discussion tonight. Indian economy, consistent upward trajectory. And to talk about that, I'm joined by Dr. Arvind Virmani, Chairman EGRO and former CEA. Also, I have with me Shubhamay Bhattacharjee. He's senior economic journalist. Both gentlemen, thank you for joining me on the show tonight. First to you, Dr. Virmani, what does this report mean in terms of the Indian economy? Is it that there is fundamental resilience in the economy, or we have a huge population, so as the report says that this domestic consumption will continue to surge your growth?
I think part of it is that many observers, many Indian observers also, were too pessimistic about the effect pandemic on the Indian the fiscal year 2020-21. So that kind of colored their thinking. That was one aspect. The second is, I think the government has managed both the fiscal and monetary situation, the overall government, including the RBI, much better than they expected, and in fact much better than many parts of the world, including the developed countries. And I think the third point, which has revised their expectations, and I would say Goldman Sachs is now becoming even perhaps more optimistic than I am, is the recognition of the reforms, the structural reforms that the government has done, and which it has took the opportunity of, in a way, this lag of activity in the economy, etc., because of fears of contagion, and that is beginning to sink in. Now, of course, I have been part of this discussion on fiscal, monetary, and reform, so I am not, surprised at that. But I think many outside observers have begun to take notice of it, and perhaps are becoming much more optimistic about things. I have been saying for almost a year that I expect we do it in fiscal terms. I think they are doing it in calendar year, but we have been saying for a long time that the economy would grow at between 9 and 11% for the current fiscal year we are in. But my forecast is that it will slow down a little bit, but still be the fastest growing in the next year. We can discuss that further.
Okay. You believe that it will slow down. Shubhamay Bhattacharjee, do you agree with Dr. Virmani's assessment that the Goldman Sachs may have predicted 9.1, but there would be some slow in the growth?
That is certainly something that we can talk about later. But the basic point which Dr. Virmani is making it very clear is that essentially the international agencies, like whether it's Goldman Sachs or others, fund houses are sort of catching up with the data, and that I'm not surprised, because what's happened is that the data has moved so fast that it's taken time for them to be able to understand, and that is what they are making up for. Also, also one of the things that has happened is that India did not follow the standard template.
Okay.
The template was that at the initial beginning of when the COVID struck, that people are out of jobs, so just push money into the economy, and that revived the economy. That was essentially what was the stated understanding. The Indian economy actually, that was a good handling by the center, that it did not fall into that trap. There was limited fiscal space, and it did not burn itself out by trying to do that sort of stuff. Essentially, the markets were closed. The shops, you couldn't just push money in and expect the economy to revive. Because lo and behold, when the shops and everything else started opening, the purchasing power came back. The purchases came back into the economy. Sure, there are dislocations. There are dislocations in large parts in the informal economy. But that can't be helped by simply, by pushing cash across, just by increasing the amount of money in the economy. That would have in fact created more inflationary pressures. We already have inflationary pressures thanks to the fact that there is supply side disruption. It would have added to those disruptions by creating that additional cash going into the market, and would have actually distorted the market for the poorer people much more. So it is a combination of that sage management, which is now showing result, and which is why you are finding that agencies are saying, fund houses, that yes, the Indian economy's revival is looking on more established pattern. It's looking better than what many of the developed countries have done. Because COVID is not something that is one-off sort of thing. And you just push the money in and the money goes out, and that doesn't. Like there's the fourth and the fifth wave of COVID is showing that you've got to keep on working at it. And that is what is actually helping. Yeah.
Okay. All right, both gentlemen, I request you to stay on. Let us tell you that China and Japan have jumped onto the bandwagon of cooling off global crude prices. US President Joe Biden on Tuesday had said that his administration will tap the strategic petroleum reserve as part of a global effort by energy-consuming nations to calm 2021's rapid rise in fuel prices. India had also announced to release about 5 million barrels of crude oil from its emergency stockpile. The coordinated release between the US, India, China, Japan, the Republic of Korea and the United Kingdom is the first such move of its kind.
I'm announcing that the largest ever release from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help provide the supply we need as we recover from this pandemic. In addition, I brought together other nations to contribute to the solution. India, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the United Kingdom have agreed to release additional oil from their reserves.
Oil prices, a global concern that ties together nations across the world. Crude is perhaps the world's largest shared conventional energy resource. US President Joe Biden announced what he called the largest ever release from the US Strategic Petroleum Reserve to boost domestic supplies in coordination with other countries. The move came after a grouping of major oil-producing nations, OPEC+, which includes Saudi Arabia as well as Russia, rebuffed requests to boost supplies. The grouping meets again on December 2nd to discuss policy but has so far shown no indication it will change tack. India too has agreed to release 5 million barrels of crude oil from its strategic petroleum reserves to the global markets. In a statement, the Indian government announced that India strongly believes that the pricing of liquid hydrocarbons should be reasonable, responsible, and be determined by market forces. India has repeatedly expressed concern at supply of oil being artificially adjusted below demand levels by oil-producing countries, leading to rising prices and negative attendant consequences. This is the first time that India has released its reserves that comes to around 13% of its total reserve capacity. What has helped India at this point are the strategic petroleum reserves it has built over the years. India holds reserves of 5.33 million metric tons of crude oil that roughly translates to 38 million barrels. This is spread across 3 locations, Visakhapatnam, Mangaluru and Padur, and is estimated to meet over 9 days of India's crude oil requirement. On Wednesday, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said his government would release some oil reserves in response to a United States request. As expected, the release by Japan will guard against any supply disruption.
We've been working with the United States to stabilize the international oil market, and we've decided to sell part of our national oil reserves in coordination with the US in a way that does not contravene the existing oil reserve law.
On Wednesday, China too announced it will release crude oil from its reserves, adding that the country was in close communication with oil-producing and oil-consuming countries. India imports oil from OPEC countries to meet 85% of its oil demand, and any rise in global crude prices not only leads to food and energy inflation, it also negatively impacts post-pandemic recovery of industrial output. The government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi had recently reduced excise duty by Rs 5 and Rs 10 on petrol and diesel to provide relief to the citizens. Nevertheless, high crude prices have been a huge strain on the country's fiscal resources and forest reserves, making a correction imperative. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
So, I still have with me Dr. Arvind Virmani and Shobhamay Bhattacharya. Dr. Virmani, the critiques of this action are saying that it's too short of expectations. The 70-80 million barrels that these countries have decided to release from their strategic oil reserves is way less. In fact, Goldman Sachs goes on to say that's a drop in the ocean. Dr. Virmani, can I request you to check your audio? I think it's muted from your end. Yes.
Sorry. A couple of points here. One, when the last time oil prices shot up to 100 barrels a dollar, I was CA, and one of the things which the government initiated at that point was to say, can we form a group of major importers and consumers of oil, which would, in some sense, counter the OPEC cartel. So it's interesting that a couple of American and other analysts or governments have started talking about that. So clearly, like you mentioned, your program, that 85% of our oil use is imported. So it's very important for us and many other countries in Asia, Japan, etc. Now, secondly, because it's a matter of, it's not a market demand supply thing only, it's a matter of the OPEC cartel. So I think I would see this as more of a signal. It's a sign from major importers or major users like US, India, Japan, that, that what we have done.
Okay. Dr. Virmani. Dr. Virmani, I think there is some problem, technical problem in the network. Your frame is freezing a bit. I'll go to Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee for the moment. Yeah, Dr. Virmani, if I could stop you because I think your frame has frozen. Yes, it's back now. You could complete what you were saying, please. All right, I think it's frozen. Let me go to Shubhamoy. Shubhamoy, let me ask you the same question. 5 million barrels in India, but it's, worth of days consumption. So the action, the critiques of this are saying, while Dr. Virmani's point is well taken, that, it is a signal to the OPEC cartel that, look, it cannot work this way, and countries have been able to get together. But the fact of the matter is that it is, more symbolic than substantial.
It was expected to be symbolic. All the countries, China, Japan, India, South Korea, and UK, taken together along with USA, have released about 50 million barrels of oil. To put the number in perspective, it is about 2 months of output increase. That means if the OPEC had continued with the current round of output increase, the rate at which they were going, it would have been about 2 months of output increase, which is what the strategic reserves release is about. So essentially, it is not as small as it being painted, yet it's not definitely big enough to ensure that the prices would cool, because energy traders would see that the demand is still there. So what's essentially happening is it is a concerted action by the world's largest buyers to say we are uncomfortable, we'll take steps. Now, obviously, it is difficult to take steps because oil only comes from a particular place. So the number of steps you can take is very limited. But what it does do is that OPEC lands into problem in terms of losing a large amount of goodwill. Now remember, Middle East or the West Asia is not a very comfortable region politically. There are lots of requirements that they do have for support from these countries. And by trying to sort of, take advantage rather sharply at a time when, because the prices are rising and these countries are obviously they'll need that oil, the OPEC is actually getting into fairly difficult situation. The last time this sort of a thing happened, renewable energy got a big boost. And essentially, the same thing that's going to happen here. So that is something which will be extremely bad news for the OPEC. And the countries like India have the ability to, soak in the shock, unlike the earlier times.
Absolutely. We'll have to leave it there. Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee and Dr. Arvind Virmani, many thanks for joining us on the show and sharing your insights with us this evening. Thank you. And ahead of the WTO Ministerial Conference next week, Director General of WHO, Tedros Ghebreyesus, expressed hope that all countries can reach an agreement for IPR waiver under the TRIPS agreement in what could be a step forward for vaccine equity. He stated that vast chunks of adult population, including health workers, have not yet been vaccinated across several low-income countries. At the same time, in major shift, the EU today announced that countries need to consider vaccine boosters to close the immunity gap. There is this is on the back of record-breaking COVID infections in several parts of Europe, with the continent once again the epicenter of a pandemic. In its interim guidance issued, the WHO had stated further that countries should prioritize vaccines for high-risk adults and also share vaccine doses with COVAX program to bring supplies to poorer countries. This is even as regulatory agencies authorize vaccines for children, including the United States, European Union and India, among others. A coalition deal has been announced in Germany after almost 2 months of talks following the country's federal election in September. Olaf Scholz, the centre-left Social Democratic Party's candidate, will be Germany's next chancellor now, replacing Angela Merkel, who has led Germany for 16 long years. The agreement between the SPD, the Greens and the Free Democratic Party will see them govern together in a three-way coalition for the first time. The alliance has been described as a traffic light coalition in reference to the party's traditional colours.
Presiding over what could be her final cabinet meeting, acting German Chancellor Angela Merkel bade her colleagues farewell. She was seen receiving a bouquet from acting German Finance Minister Olaf Scholz prior to the weekly cabinet meeting at the Chancellery in Berlin. Meanwhile, Social Democrat Scholz moved closer to becoming German Chancellor on Wednesday after agreeing on a coalition deal that aims to modernize Europe's largest economy, accelerate its green transition and bring the curtain down on the Angela Merkel era. The centre-left Social Democrats or SPDR presented their three-way agreement with the ecologist Greens and the Libertarian Free Democrats or FOP. The deal installs Germany's first three-way federal coalition government since the 1950s and ends 16 years of Merkel-led conservative government, marking a new era for relations with Europe and the rest of the world. The alliance, named a traffic light coalition after the three parties' respective colours, has a majority in the lower house of the parliament and hopes the government will be sworn in early next month after the parties ratify the coalition pact. It faces immediate challenges, with Germany tackling its worst COVID-19 surge yet and Europe grappling with the fallout from Brexit and a crisis on the European Union's border with Belarus. As Finance Minister and Vice Chancellor in the outgoing Grand Coalition of the SPD and Conservatives, Scholz, 63, was seen as a competent rather than a charismatic politician who, like Merkel, has moderate views and is adept at dialogue. Angela Merkel did not seek re-election after 4 terms as Chancellor. Her personal popularity ratings remain high, but her party is in disarray and facing a leadership contest after achieving its worst results in a federal vote following a gaffe-prone campaign by its candidate for Chancellor. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Morocco and Israel signed a defense memorandum in Rabat on Wednesday. The signing of the memorandum between Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz and the Moroccan counterpart Abdel Latif Louri will open the way for possible military sales and cooperation after the countries upgraded diplomatic ties last year. Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Sudan signed agreements to normalize relations with Israel in 2020 as part of the Abraham Accords. Departing for Rabat on Tuesday, Gantz told reporters that he was embarking on the first formal visit by an Israeli defense minister to Morocco. Australia on Wednesday classified the neo-Nazi organization, the Base, and the Shia organization based in Lebanon, Hezbollah, as a militant group and a terrorist organization. making it illegal for anyone to be a member of the base or Hezbollah. According to Australian Ministry of Home Affairs, anyone convicted of being a member can be imprisoned for up to 25 years. Australian Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrew said that there is no place for violent extremism in the country. Sweden on Wednesday chose the Social Democrat leader Magdalena Andersson as its first female prime minister. However, soon after becoming prime minister, the 54-year-old faced a crisis over a budget vote that her government looked set to lose. Andersson won the parliamentary approval after reaching a last-minute deal with former Communist Left Party. Magdalena Andersson has become the country's first lady prime minister after replacing Stefan Löfven as the leader of the Social Democrats. Andersson had been finance minister since 2014, but now faces the prospect of governing on spending priorities determined by the centre-right. In the wake of Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, bordering Uzbekistan have held military drills with Kazakhstan, imitating a response to an incursion. According to the Uzbek Ministry of Defence, the drills near Tarmez involved some 300 servicemen and 50 vehicles, as well as artillery, fighter jets, helicopters and drones. Since the Taliban takeover, the Central Asian nations bordering Afghanistan together with Russia have been holding military exercises aimed at stopping any incursion. This is when most nations have made moves to establish working ties with the new Afghan government. In a major turn of events, Apple Inc. filed a lawsuit against Israeli cyber firm NSO Group and its parent company OSY Technologies, accusing them of using surveillance and targeting of US Apple users with its Pegasus spyware. The tech giant also sought to ban NSO Group from using any Apple software services or devices. Several companies and governments have alleged NSO, the maker of Pegasus, hacking tool, of targeting human rights workers as well as journalists. The NSO had faced either legal action or criticism from Microsoft Corp., Meta Platforms Inc., Alphabet Inc., and Cisco Systems Inc. Apple Inc. is the latest in this sequence. NASA's double asteroid redirection test, also known as DART mission, was launched on Wednesday from California. DART, which is the world's first full-scale mission to test technology for defending Earth against a potential asteroid or comet hazards, was launched on SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. DART embarked on a 10-month-long journey into space covering 11 million kilometers from Earth to demonstrate the world's first planetary defense system. According to NASA, DART's one-way trip is to Didymos asteroid system, which comprises of a pair of asteroids. DART will target an asteroid named Dimorphos, which is approximately 160 meters in diameter. NASA's latest mission is designed to deflect the asteroid from a potential doomsday collision with Earth. And moving on to some national news now, 5 days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the decision to repeal the three farm laws against which the farmers had been protesting, the Union Cabinet on Wednesday cleared the bill to be taken up in the upcoming Parliament session to roll back the laws. The bill, now approved by the Cabinet, will be introduced in the winter session of Parliament beginning next week.
Multiple decisions were announced by the Union Cabinet in New Delhi in continuation to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's announcement on repealing the three farm laws. The Union Cabinet today, in a press meeting, said the Cabinet has completed the formalities to repeal the three farm laws. Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur also said that in the upcoming session of the Parliament, complete procedure to take back the three farm laws will be government's priority.
कैबिनेट की बैठक हुई तो उसमें इन सभी औपचारिकताओं को पूरा करके कैबिनेट ने तीनों बिल वापस लेने का जो औपचारिकता है उसको पूरा किया है। कुछ ही दिनों के बाद अगले हफ्ते की शुरुआत में पार्लियामेंट का सत्र आएगा और ये जो तीनों विधेयक लोकसभा राज्यसभा में पूर्व में पास हुए थे, इनको वहां पर बाकी जो प्रक्रिया वापस लेने की वहां पर पूरी कर दी जाएगी।
As part of the economic response to COVID-19, the cabinet also approved the extension of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana for another 4 months. The scheme now goes into its 5th phase at 5 kg per person per month, free of cost for all the beneficiaries covered under the National Food Security Act, including those covered under the direct benefit transfer. The extension will be for the period of December 2021 to March 2022. The food grain under Phase 5 would entail an estimated food subsidy of 53,344.52 crore rupees. While announcing the decision, the Union Minister said that India is the only country in the whole world that has given free food grains to around 80 crore people. He also informed that approval has been given to provide 609 lakh metric tons of food grains, on which 2,60,000 crore rupees will be spent.
प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना के माध्यम से देश के लगभग 80 करोड़ से ज़्यादा लोगों को 5 किलो गेहूं या चावल मुफ्त में देने की योजना, उसमें दिसंबर 2021 से लेकर मार्च 2022 तक 4 महीने के लिए बढ़ाने का निर्णय किया गया है।
Further to this, the cabinet also approved other key schemes, which includes an umbrella scheme called Ocean Services, Modeling, Application, Resources and Technology, or OSMART, that aims to augment capacity building of the nation in the oceanographic field at the international level. The cabinet also approved umbrella scheme called Atmosphere and Climate Research Modeling, Observing Systems and Services, or ACROSS, that will cost estimated of 2,135 crore rupees. Further to this, and in continuation to government's vision of self-reliant India, one of the key measures that was planned to reform power distribution and retail supply in union territories through privatization was also approved by the cabinet today, with the formation of company special purpose vehicle to privatize the electricity distribution business. The government has also approved an expenditure of more than 3,000 crore rupees for stipendiary support of 3,054 crore rupees to apprentice. With this, the cabinet today announced multiple decisions while laying emphasis on the repeal of the 3 farm laws and aiming to stride towards self-reliant India with adhering to its slogan of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Prayas. With Shailendra Mishra, News Night Desk, TD India.
Well, rain fury continues in South India with incessant rains battering Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Kerala. 35 people have lost their lives in Andhra Pradesh, while 26 people have been reported dead in Karnataka due to nature's fury.
Rain continues to batter South India, where 35 people have died in Andhra Pradesh and 26 people have been reported dead in Karnataka. Farmers bore the brunt of heavy rainfall and suffered huge losses in the Hassan district of South Karnataka after more than 6 lakh hectares of ragi crop was damaged due to the rain. In Kolar, Tumakuru district too, a lot of crop was destroyed due to the heavy rains.
There is nothing left. Everything has been washed away. There is water and mud all over the fields. The government gives a compensation of ₹68 for a hectare, which is not enough.
My 100 acres of land is completely covered by water and our crop has been ruined. We hope the government will give us better compensation.
State Revenue Minister R. Ashok took stock of the crop damage in the Hassan district and promised compensation to the farmers.
We will present a report to the Chief Minister in this matter tomorrow. We will try our best to help farmers.
Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai announced that rain-affected areas will be provided 1 kg of ragi free of cost alongside the ration. The Chief Minister met with officials of the Municipal Corporation in Bengaluru, where he directed them to carry out repair work on the connectivity routes and make arrangements for drainage at the earliest.
We have discussed storm water drain permanent this thing. We are going to construct 51 kilometer of main drain and 37 kilometer secondary drain.
Meanwhile, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy has written a letter to Prime Minister Modi seeking an interim help for rupees 1,000 crore. He has also demanded for a central team to assess affected areas. The Met Department has predicted heavy rain at isolated places in Kerala in the coming 5 days. The department issued a yellow alert for 11 districts for Thursday. Meanwhile, the water level in 8 dams of Pathanamthitta and Idukki has risen, and all of them are on a red alert. An orange alert has been issued in the state of Tamil Nadu, which has received about 61% more rainfall in the northeast monsoon. With Aisha Khanum from Bengaluru, Bureau Report, DD India.
And amid a massive spike in Delhi's air pollution, the Supreme Court on Wednesday asked the centre to continue the measures for controlling air pollution for the next 2 to 3 days. In the meantime, if the pollution level comes down to 100, the court said some restrictions can be lifted.
People in Delhi NCR are continuously inhaling polluted air. Though the air quality has improved in the past few days as compared to initial records, but still falls under the poor and extremely poor categories at many places, as recorded on Wednesday. According to the System of Air Quality and Weather Forecasting and Research, or SAFAR, Delhi's air quality index was recorded at 280 in the morning. At the same time, the air remained in the category of very poor in Ghaziabad and Noida. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta informed the Supreme Court about steps being taken to curb the menace of pollution during Supreme Court's hearing on the state of Delhi on pollution. The Solicitor General said that work on 578 construction sites has been stopped, 250 road sweeping machines are being used, and 1,007 water sprinklers are operational. The court said that ban on construction projects along with ban on movement of non-essential goods should be continued for the next few days. The court also said that restrictions can be relaxed if the air quality index falls below 100. The court said that steps should be planned in advance by forecasting the deterioration of air quality according to the available data. The court further asked Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Haryana on what steps have been taken by them to deal with stubble burning. Further to this, the Chief Justice said that in view of the ban on construction activities, the state should help the labourers from the Labour Welfare Fund. The CJI also said that hearing on the matter will not be stopped even if the air quality improves, and the court will continue to hear the matter on Monday. Amid this, the Delhi government held a meeting and took various decisions including reopening of schools, colleges and other education institutes from 29th of November. All CNG and electric vehicles will be allowed to enter the Delhi border from 27th of November. All commercial vehicles will be barred from entering Delhi till 3rd of December, and government offices will be opened from 29th of November. An advisory has been issued to the offices to use public transport. Steps are also being taken to improve the situation in many cities of Uttar Pradesh. The Municipal Corporation of Moradabad sprinkled water across the city to control air pollution. According to the Meteorological Department of Delhi NCR, the wind direction is likely to change from northwest to southwest direction in the next 24 hours, which will result to unchanged wind speed, and hence indicates less possibility of an improved air quality of Delhi NCR in the coming days. With inputs from Vikas Sarthi, Bureau Report, DD India.
And Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday addressed the inaugural session of the World Congress on Disaster Management. The minister called on the world community to take collective action to prevent disasters.
The pattern and trend of natural hazards, particularly hydrometeorological hazards, are also changing due to the impacts of man-made climate change. Other vulnerabilities, unsafe housing and infrastructure, depleting forests and mangroves, socio-economic factors and so on, are compounding the risks of disaster. Further, in a globalized, urbanized and interconnected world, no part of the world can be safe unless every part is safe.
Union Minister of Road Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari on Wednesday laid the foundation stone of 25 national highway projects of a total length of 257 kilometers with an investment of 11,721 crore rupees in Jammu. Speaking on the occasion, Nitin Gadkari said that in the last 7 years, 1,000 kilometers of national highway has been constructed in Jammu and Kashmir.
2014 में जब हमारी सरकार आई, मैं मंत्री बना, तो जम्मू कश्मीर में एनएचआई की लंबाई केवल 1,695 किलोमीटर थी और 2021 में आज एनएचआई की लंबाई 2,664 किलोमीटर हुई है। 1,000 किलोमीटर ये 5-7 साल में हमने बढ़ाया। जम्मू कश्मीर की इस परिस्थिति को देखकर हमने ये महसूस किया कि जम्मू कश्मीर में टनल बनाए बिना कोई पर्याय नहीं है और इसलिए मैं आपको विश्वास देना चाहता हूं कि केवल जम्मू कश्मीर में हम पूरे देश में जितनी टनल बना रहे हैं उससे करीब 50% टनल हम जम्मू कश्मीर में बना रहे हैं। इस बात का मुझे अभिमान है।
And Uttar Pradesh is all poised to become the only state in India to have 5 international airports. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of the Noida International Airport in Jewar on Thursday.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of the Noida International Airport in Jewar, Uttar Pradesh on 25th of November. With this, Uttar Pradesh is poised to become the only state in the country to have 5 international airports. Development of the airport is in line with the vision of Prime Minister towards boosting connectivity and creating a future-ready aviation sector.
नोएडा इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट के निर्माण के साथ इसमें लगभग 34 से लेकर 35,000 करोड़ रुपए का निवेश अकेले इस एयरपोर्ट पर होगा और 1 लाख से अधिक लोगों को नौकरी और रोजगार यहां पर उपलब्ध होंगे। 2024 में यह एयरपोर्ट फंक्शनल हो जाएगा और उत्तर प्रदेश का यह 5वां इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट होगा।
This airport will be the second international airport to come up in Delhi NCR. It will help decongest the IGI airport. It will serve the people of cities including Delhi, Noida, Ghaziabad, Aligarh, Agra, Faridabad and neighbouring areas. The development of the first phase of the airport is being done with a cost of over 10,050 crore rupees. The completed first phase of the airport will have a capacity to serve around 1.2 crore passengers a year. It is scheduled to be completed by 2024. The airport will also house a state-of-the-art MRO service facility.
केवल एयरपोर्ट के आगमन से ही इंडस्ट्री के तमाम क्लस्टर्स यहाँ आए। करीब 12 से नई इंडस्ट्रीज आ गई हैं। फिल्म सिटी आ रही है, लॉजिस्टिक पार्क आ रहा है, हेरिटेज कॉरिडोर आ रहा है, टॉय पार्क आ रहा है, एक मेडिकल डिवाइस पार्क के लिए भारत सरकार ने अनुमति दी है। इस सब के पीछे जो मुख्य केंद्र बिंदु है वो जेवर एयरपोर्ट है।
The airport will be the logistics gateway of northern India. For the first time, an airport in India has been conceptualized with an integrated multimodal cargo hub with a focus on reducing the total cost and time for logistics. The dedicated cargo terminal will have capacity of 20 lakh metric ton, which will be expanded to 80 lakh metric ton. The airport will play a crucial role in helping the region attract huge investments and boost rapid industrial growth.
जब से प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री योगी आदित्यनाथ जी बने, उन्होंने जेवर की तरफ मोड़ा सारे निवेशकों को और यहाँ एयरपोर्ट को मंजूरी दिलाकर वो मुकाम और कामयाबी हासिल की जिसकी पूरे उत्तर प्रदेश को बहुत दिनों से इंतजार था।
Noida and Delhi will be connected to the airport through hassle-free metro service. All major nearby roads and highways like the Yamuna Expressway, Western Peripheral Expressway, Eastern Peripheral Expressway, Delhi-Mumbai Expressway and others will be connected to the airport.
जेवर एयरपोर्ट आ ही रहा है, बड़ी खुशी की बात है। मोदी जी योगी जी सही काम कर रहे हैं।
एयरपोर्ट से हमें लोगों को रोजगार भी मिलेगा, बहुत ज़्यादा लोगों की जो बेरोजगारी थी वो खत्म होगी।
The design of the Jewar airport is focused on low operating cost and seamless and fast transfer processes for passengers. With Arun Sharma, Shailendra Mishra, DD India.
Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport, operated by Delhi International Airport Limited, is all set to become net zero carbon emission airport by 2030, much ahead of the IPCC's 2050 target adopted by all major industries all over the world.
Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport is all set to go green. It has moved up the IPCC's 2050 target to reach the net zero carbon emission, has implemented various programs at the airport such as use of renewable energy, development of green airport infrastructures and multiple passenger connectivity networks, energy conservation and efficiency improvements and stakeholder partnership programs.
We have adopted airport carbon accreditation and currently we are certified at level 4+ transition, which is the highest level of accreditation. We are also working towards becoming zero carbon emission airport by 2030.
In addition to this, DIAL has also taken up several technologically advanced measures such as adoption of electric vehicles and taxi bots. These taxi bots are semi-robotic vehicle and is used as a means of taxiing the plane to the runway. At the Indira Gandhi International Airport, it was introduced in 2019 for commercial operation and is the first airport in the world to take up this initiative. It has resulted in the significant reduction of aviation turbine fuel by aircraft for ground movement.
One of our key initiatives towards this is construction of the new elevated Eastern Cross Taxiway, which is going to reduce the taxiing time of aircraft and is estimated to reduce about 55,000 tons of CO2 annually.
The carbon neutral refers to a policy of not increasing carbon emissions and of achieving carbon reduction through offsets. Airport carbon accreditation is a global standard for carbon management in the airport industry. It aims to encourage and enable airports and its stakeholders to implement best practices in greenhouse gas management and achieve emission reductions. With Tapas Bhattacharya, NN Desk, DD India.
Well, the Indian Navy is all set to commission a new stealth submarine INS Vela on Thursday. This comes days after India commissioned an indigenously designed stealth-guided missile destroyer INS Vishakhapatnam. According to the Indian Navy, induction of the submarine consolidates the Indian Navy's position as builders Navy significantly and adds sharpness and strength to its combat capability.
The Indian Navy has added another feather to its cap. After conducting intense sea and harbour trial, the Indian Navy is all set to induct its 4th stealth Scorpion-class submarine INS Vela into its arsenal on November 25th, giving a major push to its firepower as well as the Make in India initiative. Built by Mazagon Dock Ship Builders Limited in collaboration with Naval Group of France, Vela is the 4th submarine of the 6th Kalvari class project, with submarines Kalvari, Khanderi and Karanj already in service. The new Vela is a potent man of war and is capable of offensive operations that span across the entire spectrum of maritime warfare.
Submarines are a weapon of offense and they greatly add to the naval combat capability. These boats are the best in the world. They compare with the best conventional submarines in the world. They have heavyweight torpedoes and missiles, and they have very high, good stealth capability, and our indigenous content has also gone up. So therefore, overall, it's a very positive and proud moment for all of us.
INS Vela is equipped with state-of-the-art technology used in Scorpion class. The submarine has superior stealth features such as advanced acoustic silencing techniques, low radiated noise levels and ability to launch crippling attacks with precision-guided weapons on board.
ये सबमरीन इसका इस तरह से डिज़ाइन की हाइड्रोडायनामिक डिज़ाइन इस तरह से बनाया गया है कि ये बहुत ही कम जो है नॉइस जनरेट करती है ताकि ये दुश्मन की पकड़ में ना आए और इसका जो सोनार है वो इतना एडवांस है कि दुश्मन की छोटी सी छोटी हरकत को भी पकड़ सकता है। इस सबमरीन को बेसिकली दुश्मन को पकड़ के घात लगा के ढूंढ के मारने के लिए डिज़ाइन किया गया और ये बहुत ही बेहतरीन तरीके से ये काम कर रही है।
Not just that, the submarine can attack by launching the torpedoes and anti-ship missiles while remaining underwater or on the surface, further enhancing the Indian Navy's capacity and firepower to address the threats both in the above water and underwater domains.
Commissioning of Vela not just enhances the strength of Indian Navy but further cements the India's position as the submarine building nation. With camera person Naveen Paul, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Mumbai.
And now a quick wrap of all the glitz in action from the International Film Festival in Goa.
As the world reeled under the impact of COVID imprisoning people in their homes, filmmakers continue to work on films and web series, many of them regarding COVID. In fact, inspired by the deadly virus that claimed so many lives, Alpha Beta Gamma, a feature film in the Indian panorama, is one such film.
मेरी पहली फिल्म है, तो 5 नवंबर को पहले नोटिफिकेशन आया था कि फिल्म सेलेक्ट हो गई ये फिल्म है, तो समझ में नहीं आया क्या हुआ। पर आज फिल्म देखी और पहली बार अपना नाम देखा मैंने थिएटर, मुझे लगा मैं रो पड़ूंगा, पर मैं रोया ही नहीं, मैं शॉक में था।
ये कहानी जब मुझे शंकर ने सुनाई फ़ोन पे, तो उसी समय मेरे दिल से आवाज़ आई कि ये करनी चाहिए। It's a very new age story of a new age people working with a very nuclear concept of a relationship and dealing with their own demons and expectations.
The film Sunpat from Uttarakhand attracted everyone. This is the director Rahul Rawat's first film, and he expressed his happiness on reaching IFFI.
So it is a great honor for all of us. I would say it's an amalgamation of the mountains and the sea in Goa and the mountains in Uttarakhand. So we would urge people to come in and watch it.
The film Sunny in Malayalam also received a red carpet screening.
Sunny basically is a film which was born because of COVID and whatnot. So I don't know whether I should thank Sunny for that. The idea of the film was born on the day our Prime Minister announced the first lockdown for 3 weeks in March last year. So that night I always wanted to make a single character film, and that was a time when the entire world was in quarantine alone, and I thought there could not be a better subject than solitude. So that is how it started.
IFFI continues with master classes offering in-depth knowledge and insights into the art of filmmaking. Veterans Randhir Kapoor and director Rahul Rawal shared their experiences with everyone in the master classes on day 5. Rukma Datta in Goa for DD India.
And that's it then in Newsnight for tonight. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.